Welcome to my first video that isn't an update video. This is Gene for Red Phoenix Gaming. Again, obviously I'm the only one doing anything right now. First things first. This is for Warhammer 40k. Other than some people may just know Warhammer Fantasy, though anyone who plays Warhammer Fantasy most likely has either heard or seen plenty of Warhammer 40k. I would be very surprised otherwise, because they're kind of next to each other at Games Workshop and most other stores. They are a big franchise for gaming tabletop. I doubt anyone would not know. But anyway, me rambling on all that goofy thing, I am going to start off with what is Warhammer 40k exactly. Unlike most other tabletop games like board games, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. Anyway, there is a certain lore and in-depth from the creators, which is really cool. Most games you don't see with as much lore as this one specifically. Thing is, Games Workshop has a tendency to have a lot of issues dealing with keeping the lore kind of streamlined in a sense. But that is something for another day. I don't know enough on that information myself. I'm kind of going off secondhand. Anyway, I will start off with the fact that the game is really cool. It's a lot of fun. It's very interesting. Most of the races you can go in and you'll be like, oh, I want to play as the orcs, example. And you'd be like, well, these probably don't have a huge amount of lore. They're just a bunch of angry, green-skinned, behemoth barbarians of sorts. But even they have an in-depth backstory, though their history isn't very well noted in some occasions, and then in others it's very well noted. Presumably assumed to who they were fighting, and they were taking records down of what was happening. Though you could do anything and you'll find something really weird for a backstory or something quite interesting for it. But there's backstory for almost everything in Warhammer 40k. I will say now that there is only 8 races, though I am easily corrected on this. There's the 8 base races. There is a lot of subclass races, though, for certain parts of the Warhammer 40k. The 8 base ones are the Orcs, as I have mentioned before, the Imperium of Man, the Forces of Chaos, Tyranids, Tau, Eldar, Dark Eldar, and Necrons. Well, I will start off with acknowledging now the Imperium of Man. Orcs I've kind of described a little bit already without planning to. The Imperium of Man is pretty much everything that is man in this day and age of the 40k millennium. They are more or less a bunch of people who, how can I put it, fanatical about their beliefs. There is a lot of xenophobia. There's a lot of issues dealing with other beings and races in this universe. Though not all of the Imperium of Man are streamlined human. There is subhumans and mutated humans from, well, other worlds, blah, that they developed in. So Nostromo, if I'm remembering the name correctly, they live on a world that has a lot of clouds, I guess. I don't know the information exactly, so this is secondhand. I am sorry. It blocks out the sun. And with that, there is not a lot of light. There's a lack of vitamin D, obviously. The people have evolved to develop a lack of eyesight and have better other senses. This is what I'm getting from secondhand information again. This is considered a subclass of human. They are mutated human. Not all of the Imperium of Man view these people with their unique evolutionary states as on par with the traditional humans, so they get a lot of ridicule. But in the case of the Imperial Guard, which have regiments from being streamlined human who are the typical xenophobics to squads, or I shouldn't say squads, squads is the wrong term, regiments of soldiers who think that their mutated brethren are holy shit awesome, because there is a lot of things that these guys can do that they can't. Nostromans, for example, are great for night raids. They're great for everything in the dark. Put them in sunlight, on the other hand, they're probably going to have a few issues. They're not going to be used to the vitamin D intake all of a sudden, as well as the bright lights. You've ever taken off your glasses, your sunglasses specifically, and then looked into like a brightish area? Yeah, they would probably freak out from that. They probably spasm a little bit. At least this would be my speculation. But then the Imperium Man is set up in a lot of subgroups. There's a lot of different armies within the said Imperium Man. Imperial Guard, as I have mentioned, which is like the base fighting force. So the ones who go first in. Then there is the Adeptus Astartes. These are the ones I know a little bit more about. They are also known as the Space Marines, the God Emperor's Angels of Death. They are heavily armored. They have power armor. They're the only ones who have power armor on a regular basis. None of the other factions within it, I believe, don't, unless if they have a lot of technologically advanced support. Because the Imperium of Man doesn't just span like the Sol system. It's kind of expands the entire Milky Way galaxy. At least most of it. There's certain parts of it where they don't have control, such as the one other race known as the Tau live. They have a small empire on the fringe, if I remember correctly. Thing is, the entire aspect of the Tau in particular is all based in range. They do not fight in melee very much. They have sub-races within their empire which help fight for them, such as the Kroot. The Kroot will fight in melee. They are their melee fighters. But off of that, there is the Eldar, which are one of the oldest races in the Warhammer 40k universe. Think of them as just really prissy space elves who think they can do anything. Well, that was before the Eye of Terror situation. I'll get more on that at a later date. The Eldar, essentially really prissy elves. That's a good way of putting it. At least they were, but they still don't. They don't like anything below their intelligence and their physicalities, and that's pretty much everything. They think talking to a human is like talking to, for us in particular, is one of us talking to a dog, in a sense. Because they just hear grumble, 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 blah, 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 blah. Because it's just like, they don't care. They really don't. Other than that, there is also the Dark Eldar, which are pretty much the reverse. They are very pleasure-y. They have been manipulated by the warp a little bit more than most races, other than maybe some of the Imperium of Man soldiers, which I'll get into in just a bit. The Dark Eldar are really creepy versions. They feed off of pain, they feed off more or less pain, pleasure, BDSM, and all that. They love their collection of magic dildos and such. It's true. They are very quick. They like to they're annoying. But the thing is, as I said before with the Eye of Terror situation, at one point the Eldar Empire went into... no, I'm not going to get into that now. I'll talk about that later. Otherwise, I'm going to ramble on for hours about that. They praise to a god, if I'm getting my lore correct. I am suitable to misjudgments, is the chaos god Slanesh. Or Slaanesh. I can't tell which one either. He is known as the Dark Prince, or as the chaos god of pleasure and pain, in a sense. It's just pretty much he's a god with the infinite collection of magic dragon dildos and makes anyone who is unfortunate enough to run into him experiment with all of them for millennia. Yeah, he's not the nicest person. I wouldn't want to ever go to one of his orgies. Would I ever want to go to one? No. His, specifically, never. Slaanesh is the youngest of the Chaos Gods. There is 3 more gods. There is the Chaos God Khorne, which most people know in the Warhammer universe because he's the only one who goes like, fuck magic, fuck psychic abilities, fuck everything other than I want to bash that guy's head in really badly and watch him bleed. Or Crazy Skull Man, because he has an entire throne known as the Brass Throne, if I remember correctly, just littered with his enemies' skulls from his soldiers who go out and kill, as you would expect, kill, maim, burn, and more or less bringing back skulls. And quite a lot of skulls. Doesn't care what type of skull is, as long as it's a skull that goes onto his throne. The next god is Tzeentch, which Khorne and Tzeentch do not get along very well. There has been incidents where they can work together. It is very unlikely. There has to be something really important for them to work together. Because while Khorne hates magic and hates everything that kind of goes against the fact that blowing and beating the shite out of someone is the better idea, Tzeentch is the chaos god of change. He likes his magics, in a sense, or his psionic abilities. His main thing is the psionic energies to manipulate, to use sorcerers and such. All the magic, all the change, and all that. It's kind of expected, but I don't know how to go off of that because I never really. Even when I played Chaos, I didn't really go for Tzeentch. I don't know how many people go for Tzeentch, so I'm kind of sorry on that one. Then there's Nurgle, which is the last Chaos God I'm going to mention. I do not know their birth order. I do not know which one's the oldest or the youngest. Nor do I want to. Nor do I want to know how they were birthed, because just because of Slaanesh's birth, a lot of fucked up shit happened. For the other 3 gods, I don't even want to know what the fuck happened. But I'm sure that's going to come up at one point, and I'm going to have to talk about it. Yippee! Nurgle is the chaos god of death and decay. He is not the nicest of gods, as in the others, but him and Khorne have a special kind of, like, hatred for each other, if I remember correctly. Or is it Tzeentch? I think it might be Tzeentch. My mind is kind of off on that. I know Tzeentch and Slaanesh don't like each other. Well, I'm pretty sure the other 3 main gods of the Blood God, the God of Change, and the God of Death and Decay do not like the Dark Prince. He's kind of like, he's the new pretty boy on the block, and they're just kind of like, hey, the guys in the old Canes who are just like, I don't like him. He's new. He's different. I don't like him. Kind of dealio. He is not. That Nurgle is kind of like everything that is nasty. It's kind of the only way I can put it. I would give more information, but I'm going to save those for later. Videos on those gods. I'm going to do a video on Chaos Gods. That's the plan. I'm going to get way more in depth with each one. Then there is the fact that under the Chaos Gods, as I mentioned before, Slaanesh has the Dark Eldar, in a sense, under his, what would be the correct word? Worship? Like, they worship him to some degree, in the sense of paying BDSM and such. But then there is the idea that all of these Chaos Gods also have what is known as the Chaos Space Marines under them, which the Chaos Space Marines emerged when the Horus Heresy happened, which I don't have as much information as I would like on those, but I'm going to get that for you guys. In that, when Horus betrayed his old loving father, the God Emperor of the Imperium Man, who saved everyone more or less for man, kind of came in with a bunch of traitor legions, and when he was defeated and pushed back into the warp, or the immaterium realm, where all the chaos lives, which I will get more in depth in at a later date. The idea that these people were thrown into a world where everything is tipsy-turvy because of it being reflective of our world, they kind of had some major differences in the sense they changed a lot. In that some of these people, from becoming just traitors to the Empire, when they were thrown in, kind of got mutated and manipulated mentally and physically. I don't know how some of us would feel, but getting our minds mentally raped and then our bodies pretty much fucked over through mutations, I'd be kind of pissed off, and the Chaos Gods know how to use this. They set them up to go and attack Imperial strongholds and that through the warp, but most of the time it gets stopped to some degree, but you can never really kill the Chaos Space Marines for extended periods due to one thing, and that is because the Chaos Space Marines just don't die. If I remember from the lore correctly, when they die, they kind of just go back into the warp and are remade, which means that you can't really just stop them from ever showing back up. And it's kind of annoying when your worlds are continuously getting invaded by these Chaos Space Marines. But it isn't just limited to Space Marines, it's also limited to anyone who lacks the willpower to stand up against the Chaos Gods, or let them in, or kind of just go full throttle into the warp. There has been instances where some Space Marines in that are able to resist it, but it does generally drive most people mad before anything else happens. But on to the next people, which is who would it be is the great question. The Necrons, the ancient enemy of the Eldar. You could put it as, oh, they're just robots, but that isn't entirely, how can I put it, exactly to the point. Necrons are kind of more or less, their souls were put into machines. They are living machines. Which, when you think about it, is a whole lot more creepier than you would think, because their souls are in these things. But as you would also guess, they are extremely hard to kill and get rid of. Or, as I like to call them, beam, shoot me up and never die fucktards. They are extremely annoying. They just do not give two shits about most things. You can hit him with a las gun and maybe cut them in half, but there's still the potential that he'll just come right back. There is the very big potential because they have something called restoration protocols, or I believe that's what it's called. Correct me if I am wrong. These protocols pretty much state that they will rebuild themselves to continue fighting. That means you can't put one down easily without a good amount of firepower, or if he fails to get himself back up, which does happen. When you add this with a Necron Lords, yes, with his Resurrection Orb, he can... Oh, it's called Resurrection Protocols. Remembered. The Resurrection Orb pretty much gives them a bonus to revitalizing themselves, which is horrible. That is just like, oh, an FU to every time you kill one. And it takes forever to get these bastards down in the first place. And now you have to get him back down onto the ground. And there's still the potential chance that he'll come right back. It's not fun. It's not fun to deal with at all. Heck. Then there is... I'm gonna go off again to the most swarmy of all of the races. And this is also swarmier than orcs, which are... We all know orcs as, like, green skins, or the ones that we've seen in Lord of the Rings, where there's a lot of them. They're crude. They don't have a lot of, like, high-tech things. Tyranids are kind of like, oh, you may have an orc horde, but we have no limit. They just don't give two shits. They have so much shit popping out of their hive fleets at any one time that it's ridiculous. They are one of the most annoying things because of the sheer amount of units you can field with this army, as well as other things. But I think that's going to be enough on the armies that I'm telling, because I'm going to go more in depth and actually speak like a normal person when I'm talking about them, instead of just going like A, B, C, D, E, or up. Just random things. The worst thing that is with this is there's so much to talk about. There is almost no limit to how much I can talk about with this game. I will do my best to give accurate descriptions of the world. So, this has been Red Phoenix Gamer. I hope you enjoyed it, and that you will stick around for the future videos, and if this one didn't put you off immediately, that is great. But, as it is today, I will see you in the next one. Have a wonderful afternoon, morning, lunch, dinner, whenever it is your time. Do not worry, I will make sure to give you a thumbs up whenever you're alone. And I shall see you in the next video. Finally, bye-bye.